Who I am is who I want to be. This is a great statement made by Marva Collins, my next featured guest on Live Into 5D, Waking Up Our Nature. Thanks for joining us. Here's this current podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Vicchi Oleski, and you're listening to Live Into 5D, Waking Up Our Nature. And for today's podcast, we have a lovely guest, Marva Collins. I met Marva through Intentional Creativity International Painting and Creative Artist Community from Sonoma, California. Welcome, Marva. So
thank you.
Yeah, what a blessing. You know, we've been kind of playing with each other in the community for maybe about a year, you know. I love how MUSEA has set up an app and we have threads on Facebook, but it wasn't until last month we actually got to meet face to face.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your work background, where you're at now, how you found intentional creativity, and how that weaves into your everyday life. I know that's a big ask, but we'll just start where we're at. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Vicchi, thank you for asking me. Thank you for having me on the podcast. As Vicchi said, I'm Marva L Collins, and I do that because some of you may know there's a very famous woman named Marva Collins, and I stick my L in to make sure you know that I'm not her.
I love that.
So anyway, how I got to MUSEA with intentional creativity started, it's been a long trip. It started with my 3 careers, getting through those, and also when I was told when I was growing up that I couldn't draw. At the time of my divorce, back in 1974, I needed something to keep me busy, so I decided I would take a drawing class at a night school at a local high school. And I got there, and the voices that told me that I couldn't draw was so loud that after a couple of classes, I dropped out. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get back to creating in that way, because I've been a creative all my life with other things, but I didn't get back to drawing and painting. Probably it was around 1999 that I took a class and started seriously looking into that part of my creative life. I still judged by, was it a pretty picture? So that didn't change until I made my way to MUSEA and intentional creativity, where my creativity was less about what the picture looked like and more about what was coming through me and from me to the painting. Right. And long story short, I met a woman who was involved in at MUSEA. She was taking a class to be a teacher there, and she was singing the songs of it. And I thought it was hokey, and I told her so, and that I had no interest at all. And that was during COVID. So we had another thing that we were doing together, and she kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And after about a year of listening to her, I decided that maybe it was less than that. Yeah, about 6 or 7 months of listening to her, I decided to give it a try, to look at it. And I took my first class, and I was hooked. It was a class in 2020,
Mm.
yeah, called Ritual. And it was a year-long class and following the moon cycles and all of that stuff. And how I was able to work through some things that were stuck inside me, um, through that painting, through that year-long process, that I was trying a lot of stuff because I was at a place in my life where, well, my son had been murdered.
Mhm.
So I was at a place in my life that I was stuck. I was just stuck. And I needed something. And I had been trying a few things and they had been helpful. And they led me, my whole path was leading me to this place to be able to, in a non-judgmental way, in around people who were not judgmental, who were working through their own things,
Mhm.
uh, it made a difference
Mhm.
in my path. You know, I worked as a psychotherapist, and I have lots of friends who are psychotherapists who have helped me a lot
Mhm.
through that situation and prepared me
Right.
to be able to go into intentional creativity and not judge myself so much about, I didn't make a face that looked like my face or somebody I know face, that I just did what I did there and got supported, got applause for making a face that didn't look like a face. So yeah, yeah, that's,
What a
I, my
story.
son led me here. I can say that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, Marva, thank you so much for sharing that story. I don't believe I've heard that.
yeah. You
Okay.
haven't. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that,
You're
especially
welcome.
on this public platform, the podcast.
Yeah,
Um, I think so often I could say for myself, I've had a similar experience with people sharing their thing with me and feeling like their thing wasn't really my thing, but there was something
mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
was, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's a super powerful story. Could you share with us the golden thread of what your experience is with intentional creativity and how it helped you? You didn't say grief, but I'm pretty sure, having your son be murdered, you must have.
Yeah.
uh, can you talk a little bit about how that helped you, supported you?
Because it wasn't like in therapy, it was ever present.
Mhm.
And doing the painting, I had respite. I didn't have to think about it. I was doing something else. I didn't have to, I had respite from it. So, more of a step back than to create a space for healing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, without having to bring it up, but just create the space and allow the healing to occur in the space.
Well, here's a question because in my working with clients and also coming from a social work background and your background being a psychotherapist, I think often in those type of modalities, we're really looking at the problem. We're very
Mm-hmm,
focused on
mm-hmm.
what went wrong, who said what, the litany of stories that has to kind of emerge and come forward, but we're almost like feeding it by looking at it. And what I'm
Yeah,
hearing is that through painting and intentional creativity, it allowed space for you to feel yourself
Mm-hmm.
and feel that emergent part of you that has been really asking for some time.
Yes, yes.
So did that so that you could go back and revisit the grief in a stronger way? How did that flow together?
I don't I don't think there was a revisiting of the grief.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I don't I think I hadn't really given it a thought, so this is the pause. I think it was more of acceptance. It was
Wow.
yeah, it was more at a place of acceptance. One of the things that happened during this process was that there was a trial and the person was found guilty. And one of the things I asked the police officers and the district attorney was, I do not want to know that person's name.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that in my consciousness. So I didn't have to fight that off. I didn't have to go Google him. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. So that also was a part of the healing that I could just deal with in my opening up process, just deal with my son and not this other person.
That is so powerful.
Yeah.
I love that. I bow to you and I thank you. I think that I feel as though we spend too much of our energy and time and attention at placing it on something that, just goes wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Some things
Yeah.
fall off, like things like this do happen.
Yes.
And for you to really say and honor that you don't want to have that in your consciousness. Like, could you talk to us a little bit more about that from your elder? Because I know that I love how you identify that you're an elder, but you're not elderly.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for that also. Could you help the listeners and myself kind of understand like that statement that you made? You didn't want that in your consciousness. From an elder point of view, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. That I've lived enough life and experienced enough negative stuff that I have ruminated and gone over and over in my head, making myself more and more miserable by telling the story. I should have said this. I could have done this. I should have done that. Oh, if I'd only said this and they did this. And I just didn't want, I had enough of that, enough of that. Because I know that the human tendency is to grab a hold of something, and lock jaws on it and just let it take you places that you don't want to go. And that's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to, for me personally, go someplace that I didn't want to go. And I didn't want to dishonor my son by going someplace that I didn't want to go. Because I can be kind of mean. So I didn't want to do all of those things. I didn't want to have those thoughts.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. I think that that gets spoken, but people, I will say, working with the public and clients, like there is like a get back mentality and
Mhm.
or get over mentality or get. And the thing that heard was that no, you moved into acceptance.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
that was,
yes. Yeah,
I want,
and that's not to say that it wasn't sad even after acceptance. I think about it, and it's because he's not there. He's not sitting here beside me. So that still goes on. You still deal with that day to day, and that acceptance is a daily acceptance. It wasn't just a one-time acceptance. It's daily. When the memory comes up, it's daily accepting, or as it comes up, not necessarily come up daily, but accepting it along the way. That my my painting, which one was it? I can't remember which one it was, but we were supposed to be doing a certain thing, painting a certain way in this particular class. And oh, I remember. It was my red thread guide. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to look a certain way. And the way mine looked like it was my son with an alien next to him that was his brother. Wow. And he spoke that way a lot, that he didn't feel like he belonged on this planet. Okay. And so I drew that he got what he wanted.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my red thread, it's a picture of him, and next to him is the silver face, the regular big-eyed alien. Yeah, and that gave me comfort.
Yeah.
It looked nothing like we were talking about, but that's where my hand went. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of the intentional creativity. You do what comes out of you, even if the teacher is teaching something else. If you have something that's big inside you, you go there. You go to that space.
That Shiloh Sophia teaches that way.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to bring up and, support that amazing person in your and my life and in this community's life.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. While they're teaching, she'll be instructing, but at the same time, she'll like look over at the camera or in session, she'll say, but you do you and I'll do me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I want to bring up a part that you had earlier spoken to me about before we got, recording this. And you were talking about your grandmother making clothes.
Yes, yes. And I grew up around people who created intentionally, with her garden, with her cooking, and she made my clothes. Mm-hmm. And she made her own patterns. And I was sharing that. I would see her down on the floor with newspaper, cutting patterns to make my clothes to go to school the following year. Because this was usually in the summer. And I grew up around elders, and they were at a time in their lives where it was slow enough that they could create these beautiful things. Mm-hmm. And they want, so that was a God's gift to me, to be raised by elders. And that's why I have such an affinity all my life, and especially now that I am one and I know what it feels like to be one. I love that. And at the same time, I want younger people to know what that's like.
Yeah.
Because if they're lucky, they're going to get here. And I was able to see it in action growing up, so it was no surprise to me when I got here. But many young people, it's a shock when things that happens when you're an elder starts to happen. And
I can talk a little bit about that because I recently, not this birthday, but last birthday, 2022, I was with my family back east, and they had a surprise party, for me. And it was like I was sitting with the whole family, realizing, oh, this is their birthday party for me. Yeah. It sounds funny, like they invited me to hang out with them on a Saturday, And then I realized, oh, this is my party. And they're like, yeah, Aunt Vic. And through that whole party, I really started to realize that my nieces and nephews, were recognizing me as the elder.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was a mind-boggling. Number one, I my family is very youthful in movement and all that. They don't really talk about, oh, my dad used to talk about getting old, but um, it was such a curious thing for me to like have that come on me. And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
also pre-IC. It was just before I started my IC, my intentional creativity journey with MUSEA. And so I can kind of relate to your story and the whole foundation of our ancestors.
Yes. And see, I had a model or a mold, so I knew what it was going to look like all my life. I knew what it looked like to age, and I knew, and one of my fondest memories is I come from a rural town, and we were out in the road jump roping, one on each end, and just we jumping in and out. And my grandmother was walking across the street to her sister-in-law's house, and she just jumped into the rope and went on and jumped a couple of jumps and went on across the street to, and it's because my grandmother was not a tall, thin woman. She was short and she was round. And she jumped in, and that's it. Hey, I was 10. And I thought, you don't die just because you get older. That was a pivotal moment for me when she jumped into that rope.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw her very differently after that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like you saw her differently, as in, oh my goodness, that's my grandmother and she's doing this fun thing. Was it
Yeah.
that?
That's my grandmother, and she's moving like she's young. She's
Yeah,
youthful. Yeah.
beautiful. I'm so happy for you. You've had some real powerful moments as a young person that,
Yeah.
that kind of imprints us. It does develop us quite significantly.
Yes, it does. Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Marva, what would you like to uh kind of bring our podcast to a close, but not not quickly, because
Okay.
I want to ask you, like, now that you're where you're at in your life, I have no idea how old you are, nor does that really matter. What would through your paintings and how we do paint in MUSEA as a community, but just you personally, what would you what is the thing that you really feel like, oh, I'm going to leave this behind for my family. I'm going to leave this behind. What's your what comes to mind for you? Like, what do you want to be leaving
I
behind?
know that I that is something that I have known for a very long time. And my legacy will be she rode it until the wheels fell off.
Okay.
That's right, that she lived every breath of her life. And that's what I want for them.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you share this feeling and knowledge with your family, and what type of feedback do you get from them?
With my family, and they're still very close to the girls that they grew up with who played in my backyard stuff. They all call me,
Mhm.
Mom, what should I do about this? Mom, this is happening. There's about 15 girls. They're not girls anymore. They're all 50-ish. But they've been calling me and seeing me as this person they could talk to ever since they were elementary school.
Wow, Marva.
That when they didn't talk to their parents, they would talk to me.
That's, I had someone like that in my life too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is golden for people.
Yeah.
Children, I don't even think it's a wrong thing. I think it's a natural thing that happens. So your legacy is that you want to be known for riding until the wheels
The
fall
wheels.
off.
Yes. I ride my life until the wheels fall
What do
off.
you do as a routine as an elder woman? Like,
Mm,
what keeps
I
you?
I spend a lot of quiet time.
Oh,
I keep the noise out. I stopped watching network news in the 80s.
wow.
Not that I say that I don't watch it and don't know what's going on, but I don't, I'll get the gist of what's going on. I don't stare at it. Um, Major things that happen, I'll watch that, but as a matter of course, I don't.
Now that kind of fits into your thing that you shared with us earlier about not wanting it into your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Absolutely.
because programming is definitely coming from the TV. That's
Mm-hmm.
one source. And so you're saying in the 80s, so
Mm-hmm.
that what feeds you is solitude.
Solitude and making my own reality and not having my reality based on what someone else thinks
Wow.
of me and the world. And that's been so, that didn't just start. I have friends that I went to high school with that says you've always been like that. But I create my own life. I just finished watching 6 seasons of Reba,
Ah,
and and her theme song included "Who I Am is Who I Want to Be,"
mhm,
and it's been like that. I've been that way for a long time. As a kid, who I am is who I want to be,
mhm.
and so that is good for me, but it's off-putting to a lot of people.
It chimes into, that you're going to ride until your wheels fall off.
Yes, yes,
It kind of is like both end. That's
yeah,
so
yeah.
beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That feels so touching.
Welcome.
Oh my goodness.
I'm glad to be able to do that.
Well, thank you, Marva.
You're welcome.
Do you have a specific, like I have been doing this a little bit more frequently. Do you have anything that you want to ask of us, the listener?
Yeah, one thing,
Mhm.
erase elderly from your consciousness. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
yeah.
All right, Marva. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.